Oh, hey! Welcome back to DG's shop. It's been a while since we've talked to you guys last and had you here. You know, we like keeping you guys informed on the latest and greatest products and what breaks and what works and what doesn't. Remember, we are an automotive shop that does primarily nothing but diesel pickups here. So today, we have got an update to a previous video we launched. About a year ago, we launched a video in which we broke down the individual RPO codes for a different Duramax. So we're talking your LB7 all the way up to your LML. And we left the L5P out. Purposely, we left the L5P motor out of that so we could bring a more in-depth information video like this to you with as much as we've got to give you. So we happen to have cab up on one for repair today. This is a 2019 model year Duramax L5P, and it had some concerns of which have been fixed. So before we put it back down together, let's give you the overview of that. So, L5P, well, L5P came out in 2017 model year. What was changed? A heck of a lot. Previous years of Duramax, basically from your LLYs all the way through to your LMLs, plumbing was very similar, okay? All of those models ran an EGR system, exhaust manifold system, up pipe system, and regular plumbing using, you know, the latest offerings from a Garrett turbocharger system with VGT, using a Bosch injection system as a CP3 injection pump on all those models that brought some really good fuel pressure, boost pressure, and a general overall great running Duramax diesel engine. But things are changing, and L5P was a brand new offering. So in the L5P mode, we're going to break down some of this. So basic architecture with your L5P is laid out still similar to many other Isuzu Duramax diesel engines, and even shares some with the common V8 design gas engines. So what has not changed is the fact that this is still an Isuzu built, a Duramax branded V8 design, just like you guys are used to. We still have air conditioning compressor and alternator setup, power steering, all basic architecture is the same within this. We're still running electric viscose fan clutch. We're still running the most latest and greatest emission system equipment that is available. We're still running an EGR, though it's plumbed differently. I'll show you that in a minute. We're still running VGT, turbocharging. Again, same location, but very different plumbing. And we'll kind of go over that. New engine control module, new transmission control module, a lot of different emissions control systems after the engine, after treatment system, up-to-date stuff, multiple NOx sensors, more EGT sensors. The whole theme of this engine seems to be the fact that we want to get pressures and temperatures controlled more than ever before. The back down or limp modes, as they're commonly referred to in the L5P engine, are greater than they had been before. Well, what does that mean? The idea is if this system or if this truck starts to have a subsystem that starts to go off course, the OEM manufacturer wants to bring it in, lock it down, and force the owner of the vehicle to drive the vehicle to get that system fixed before it spools into a larger problem. Now, GM is not the only one to do this. It's just with the latest offering, we're seeing the most back down we've seen before, especially if something small like a basic sensor goes slightly out of range. So we'll bring you around and show you some actual specific architecture and what this vehicle was in for today. Some other architecture changes we're going to show you here. Now, using my handy dandy pointing stick, your normal V8 cast iron manifold design comes up to an up pipe, basically on the same other side. We've seen this on other Duramax models. Hardware has changed a little bit, much smaller hardware in the exhaust system, which means things don't come apart as nice as we would. Now, this vehicle's got over 200,000 miles on it. Yes, 200,000 miles on a 2019 model year. The truck doesn't stop much. The EGR system typically on Duramax is before your right side up pipe, so where your exhaust flows from manifold up to drive turbocharger, there used to be a takeout right around here that would come up and run your EGR cooler. In the model of L5P in front, and I think you're going to see this in later models following, your actual basic EGR porting comes off mid to front of the right side exhaust manifold. There is a lower EGR valve that controls direction of exhaust flow coming up through, which is liquid cooled to control that temperature, something we hadn't seen before, coming up to an upper EGR valve, which basically makes a decision of whether or not the exhaust is going to direct into an EGR cooler or whether it's going to go directly into the intake manifold. If it does decide to go up and the computer decides to send exhaust, it will send through the back of the EGR cooler. Coolant's plumbed in through the top. We are back to a single EGR cooler. So the LML, which was your 11 to 16 model, was running a dual series style EGR cooler in which you can control temperature through 1 or 2 EGR coolers. We're back to a single model, keeping things a little simpler. Now it is a bigger, beefier, thicker EGR cooler than we've seen before, so we're going to be able to control temperature a little more within a shorter area of range. Intake components are a little different as well. We do see where your cooled and boosted air after intercooler will come up into your throttle valve assembly. And on previous model Duramax, you've heard the term Y bridge, which means it came up, went through its valve, brought the exhaust in and mixed with that airstream, again watching temperatures, pressures, all the sensors you see up here, running that then down into the center of the valley, in which it would split into each side of the head. Now, the previous model Duramax had very, very small ports in their aluminum cylinder heads. The L5P Duramax, and if you've seen Gail Banks' video, very, very large ports in this cylinder head. It's a completely redesigned cylinder head with much more airflow, and that was again another theme we see across this engine. The airflow on the size of this engine is massive, okay? The Y bridge is no longer there. Now we have what I call the M&M style, so we have a single port throttle body that comes in and reads our right and left intake ports, and those feed right into your cylinder heads. So instead of a Y coming into 2, we have an M feeding into 2, different design. Now because of that, your fresh air box would sit here and come in and bring fresh air port kind of down underneath. I do have another video we may take some clips out of and show you that as well, where we've got that intake piece off to show you some of that breakdown. Some things that stayed the same for a second. Switch over and talk about fuel system. The fuel system is still a single positive displacement pump. This time around, from 2017 and up, the injection system has been sourced out to Denso, so it's a Denso fuel injection system, running a different style of injector, still 8 injectors to the system, and a single pump feeding a rail. Now the rail, there's a left and right rail, there is a regulator on the actual pump, as well as a pressure regulator on one of the rails, pressure sensors, making sure we're keeping that pressure in line. Speaking of pressure, the OEM has pushed the max pressure on this to 29,000 PSI. Now there are companies out there tuning these and push that to over 33,000 PSI at the common rail, which is the most we've seen from any manufacturer. Why do we do this? We do this because with higher pressure we can atomize better. If we atomize the diesel fuel faster and better, we can get more power out of less millimeter of actual liquid fuel. Cool stuff, right? I know, that's what technology does, and we love new technology. All right, so focusing on turbocharger for a second, as we're at the driver's rear corner of this engine. Turbocharger in this is a big boy, and again, we've switched brands again, similar to the fuel system. Now they've gone to Borg Warner as a turbocharger OEM manufacturer for the L5P. What's changed? Well, in a growing trend to get better power and torque at a lower RPM, they've actually gone to a slightly smaller turbine on the exhaust side of this turbocharger. Still variable geometry, which isn't going to go away because of emissions requirements. Variable geometry is now controlled by an electronic servo, so you'll see this unit here can move and run a caged set of vanes inside this turbocharger, different from the Garrick design, in which those will pitch and open and close to create good flow down low with good pressure and good flow at a higher RPM when we have more volume to keep that proper pressure. Factory systems are now pushing that 33, 34 PSI mark from factory. Again, control with VGT. Temperature sensors in the intake stream and the exhaust stream all along the way. What else do we know about this turbocharger? Well, the turbocharger factory compressor side is a 61 mil, and interestingly enough, it's a pass-through billet design. Okay, so they actually put a billet compressor wheel in these the first time that I have seen in this turbocharger. Turbine side, opposite. We went smaller with the turbine because that way the OEM manufacturer is capable of getting max torque under 15 or under 1600 RPM, which means you're getting 90% of that torque right off the line. By doing so, they can reduce some carbon emissions and other things as well that go along with that. But basically what you're going to feel is seat of the pants torque, which is what you want. Interesting, this big heat shield and this NOx sensor that's built into this system here, this is actually your pre-cat for the system. So you've had an oxidation catalyst, passive oxidation catalyst, right here on the turbocharger. So the turbocharger actually stops about here. The cat is actually then V-band clamped on. Basically, the hotter we can keep this cat, the more efficient the rest of the system can be, and we don't have to work that after treatment nearly as hard to get the efficiency we want. You get to kind of have a quick shot here. You see your basic fuel pressure and return lines coming off of this. Interestingly enough, this is the first Duramax from factory to have an electric lift pump. previous model Duramaxes, adding a lift pump to get good pressure up to your injection pump was very popular, whether it be by an aftermarket or like an AirDog or a FASS, upgrade that most Duramax owners will do. For the first time, we see a factory lift pump in tank in this system, which is good. There's always room for improvement, but it's good to see that now we have positive displacement up to that injection pump. Very similar plumbing though on that. Still running a decent PCV system on these trucks. Lots here to show you in that way, but basically the theme of this is smaller components on the exhaust side to spool up that new turbocharger quick, larger components on the intake side so that we get proper cooling and flow into that engine. The turbocharger is probably the choke point we're finding within this engine. We have seen some failures in the turbocharger, typically due to overuse or under maintenance. In factory form, because of the numbers this truck is putting out, which were class leading for 2019, we're generally happy. Now, what did this truck come in for at 200,000 miles, do you ask? This customer had a concern in which the DPF, which is your diesel particulate filter, had actually plugged and restricted. Why? The question is always why. These systems are not serviced for life, but they are serviced to the point where you should get maybe 300,000 miles out of the average use. Now this one being obviously a lot of miles in a short period of time. This is a trailer hauler. This truck doesn't stop. It hauls trailers all day long, which is good, which means it's in its optimum use. It should get decent heat retention in the exhaust, which means our after treatment system should work quite efficiently. This customer, we found the root cause of his DPF problem was actually in a case where the exhaust manifold, and you heard me say before the hardware is smaller, the actual exhaust manifold had warped. And when I mean warped, I mean 1/4 of an inch warped on that straight edge. Exhaust manifold came off and was replaced, broken hardware into the cylinder head. So because of that, we are seeing cylinder heads that, like I said to you before, do flow better, but obviously the heat retention that the exhaust system is going to put on that system, dissimilar metals don't like being there as the cast iron manifold started to pull away, broke some hardware, caused a leak in front of the turbo. So how does that lead into a DPF problem? In any diesel vehicle or any forced induction vehicle, if we don't have that optimum flow up to the turbine side or inlet side of our turbocharger, the turbocharger is going to lag slightly to spool up to its optimum efficiency. Hear me here, optimum efficiency. If we don't have optimum efficiency on our induction side, therefore then we're going to create more hydrocarbons and soot. More hydrocarbons and soot therefore mean that the after treatment has to work overtime. Work an after treatment system overtime long enough, and you'll have a failure like this customer has dealt with. Now, this truck's all fixed up. There's not a lot you can see with all these heat shields on here, but obviously a new exhaust manifold. In this case, the actual heat expansion bellows, which both the left and right up pipe there have, did have some stress on them as well. And one of those heat expansion bellows, or as some guys will call them a flex pipe, though they don't flex, was also blown out. So we did not have optimum exhaust back pressure, therefore driving the turbo, and everything spools down out of control. But like another happy DG's customer, this customer is all fixed up. He'll be on the road likely by the end of the day, back to hauling trailers and taking care of his customers. So that leads us to the end of our L5P information video. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely send us a comment. Hit us up directly on any of the social media avenues, whether it be Facebook, Instagram. Google is a great way to get a hold of us lately. A lot of customers are taking advantage of that. If you like these videos, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you're sharing those videos so others can get the information they need. Maybe they've got an L5P. Maybe they're looking for a good place to have that L5P taken care of, whether it be maintenance, repairs, or upgrades. Give DG's ProTech in Listowel, Ontario a call. We'll take care of you. I think that's it, guys. We'll wrap this one up. From us all at DG's and our team, our amazing team here, make sure you're giving us a call. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.